Well, spring has sprung, the grass has riz. This is where the good writing, and today specifically the prose poetry, is. You like my poem? That was the first draft, believe it or not. Wow. And I wrote that little poem to honor National Poetry Month. And also to honor Poetry Month, we have a special Prose Garden edition devoted exclusively to the prose poem. Welcome to the Prose Garden. I am Francine Witte in New York City, and my fellow host, Meg Pokrass, is in the UK. We have come up with this annual Prose Garden event. I think we did it last year and the year before, to highlight this very special genre, the prose poem. Today, you will hear from 8 masters, and I really mean that, masters of the form. Meg and I are very excited and very honored to have them read with us here in the Prose Garden. So sit back, you already have the best seat in the house, and enjoy, enjoy, enjoy. To start off, I will read a couple of prose poems, and then I will turn it over to Meg, who will read a few prose poems, and then we'll introduce our featured readers. So, definition. The little boy asks his family what a lemon is. The mother, mostly apron, says, "Oh, I use it in my cooking, also to sprinkle on fish." The father, who is rumpled like the evening paper, says, "Ha, a lemon is the car your mother's brother sold me." The boy's older sister is mostly boy drunk and says she uses lemons to bleach freckles off her face and also to blonde up her hair. The boy then asks his grandmother what a lemon is. She is round-shouldered and pucker-skinned. She only comes downstairs once a day now. Other times, she is in the attic where she lives. A tiny window, a tinier view. She says the sun is a lemon, sometimes a slice, sometimes a wedge. It fits different each day in the window, and each day a little less yellow than it was the day before. Mm. And in the second prose poem, I'm going to read Things. My life is filled with things, red things, square things, things I sit on, things to help me eat. Things are everywhere, and since they are, I can't escape them. One time I tried giving up things for an hour, said to myself, don't look, don't touch. I tried turning myself into air, a breeze, a waft across a lavender room. When that didn't work, because how could it, I realized the things had won. Only one way to go. I had to become a thing. I sat down on my sofa thing. I called out some words, which are also a thing. Told the world to come get me, use me to scrape a potato, use me to paint a wall, do whatever it takes to make the want of you grow in your eyes, for me to be the thing you want. Thank you. And I'm going to turn it over now to my lovely and wonderful fellow host in the UK, Meg Pokrass.
Thank you so much, Francine, and welcome everybody. I'll read a piece from that appeared in Gone Lawn recently. It's called "What Floated Back." The boy was there when the sun rose, but he wasn't there in the evening. The boy was there when the sun rose, but she didn't remember his name. When she listened to music, he was back, and only then did she know how much she had missed him. Again, she was a young woman sitting on her sofa, listening to lute and guitar as the boy floated back to her. It was morning again. The sun was rising, but the curtains were drawn. The boy was a boy, and she was an old woman, and this is how things were. None of it mattered anymore, because everything mattered too much. It was as if she could take a chance and win the boy back if she really wanted. She remembered all of this now. how he was too many things to her at once, and she had to let him go. And the next piece is called Changing a Map, which also appeared in Gonlon. Changing a Map. Today, my father returns from his sunken ship. Once a year, his monkey smile beautifies my mother's front door. I feel frantic and beautiful, flitting around my bedroom in different hats, pushing escaped eucalyptus leaves back under the bed where Mom promises they'll ward off fleas. He's a charmer with serious issues, Mom says, when she tries to describe him to other people. But I've learned not to hear her. Our Pebble Dash rental is shaped like a box, and I hope he won't notice, won't say anything about my mother being a familiar stranger. He promises me his authentic sea captain's map, and I imagine a path leading to a sunken world without mothers, where I will attach myself like a starfish to his wreck. Thank you. And I'll turn it back to my beautiful, wonderful, and incredibly talented co-host, Francine Witte.
Thank you, Meg. Those are so good. So good. And now we have our featured readers. So we're going to start with Brad Rose. Brad Rose was born and raised in Los Angeles and lives in Boston. He is the author of 8 collections of poetry and microfiction, or words to that effect. I wouldn't say that exactly. Lucky Animals, No Wait, I Can Explain, Pink X-Ray, Detonations, and Momentary Turbulence. Brad is also the author of 7 poetry chapbooks. When do you sleep, Brad? Among them, Democracy of Secrets, An Evil Twin is Always a Good Companion, and funny you should ask that. Even his titles are funny. His website is bradrosepoetry.com. Brad Rose.
Thank you very much, Francine, and thanks, Meg, for inviting me. It's really an honor. The first piece I'm going to read is called Is It Any Wonder I Loved You? And this appeared in 6 sentences. Your eyes, tiny Dixie cups, your knuckles like wooden spools of thread. Just thinking of you makes my heart skip, as if I had been tied up and thrown down a flight of stairs. At the lineup, more than one witness picked you out. In fact, it was unanimous. You were the one, Miss Popular. The police report stated that you were less than partially clothed when they arrived at the scene and found, next to the bleeding body, the gun you'd used. Brand new, except for the 40 spent rounds. But who's counting? Not me. Keeping an eye on you. After watching edible television, I'm learning to talk to myself. Thinking means different things to different people. Consider the spaghetti western. Simple living requires getting rid of things that you don't enjoy or that will kill you. Even on summer days, the sun keeps its distance. No use getting all riled up. In case I have to rename myself, I'm going to assume a case of mistaken identity. Can't wait to see the sequel. Yesterday, I took a walk in the park, and I realized I am the garden. Sometimes my brain gets in the way. When it does, I lip sync until I align with my pseudonyms. If you see something, say something. I don't want to watch you sleep at night, but I do. Clown Fate. This is in my book, my latest book, or words to that effect. There's no official diagnosis for my condition. Whether I'm supine or prone, I'm always smiling. Thanks to one big bang or another, I seem to be in 2 time zones simultaneously. Maybe I just need a good night's sleep or become a better procrastinator. Yesterday, after the car washed, I outnumbered myself by 2 to 1, so I rolled down all the windows and let the double-crossing rain in. With all due respect, I ask you, can imagining a better future really make it come true? Yesterday, I had to check into the Happy Clown Hotel. With shoes as big as these, what choice did I have? Hat store window. Thanks to my invisibility cloak, I'm enjoying the darkness. You know me. If I could, I'd dance the night away. In fact, because I'm no longer afraid of the devil's cartoons, I'm planning a trip to the real Disneyland. In merely 3 short weeks, anyone on the internet can learn to speak a new language. It's a small world after all. Just imagine your internal organs, of course not your appendix, that useless little finger buried deep in your slippery belly. That's much too ugly, although like extraterrestrial intelligence, there's got to be a logical explanation. You probably think you know exactly where this is going. Appearances can be deceiving. In my opinion, your dainty head belongs in a hat store window. So come on in. Have a seat. Any seat. No, not that seat. Electric eels. Millions of Americans have been affected by identity theft. It's probably the greenhouse gases. Remember that time I voted for the opposition robots? On election night, the intergalactic aliens called me and complained. I hope they don't hold a grudge. Now I'm lying low, quiet as a bottom-feeding catfish, although sometimes I just can't help myself. I feel as animated as Dr. Frankenstein at the prospect of a thunderstorm. My electrician says life is one long low-voltage electrocution until your bill comes due. Then everyone gets capital punishment. When I tell him all good things must come to an end, he says no one enjoys being hit by lightning, Buster, except the eels. And the last piece is a short one called Cannibals. Cannibals don't automatically become headhunters. There's a long apprenticeship. The basic equation is how much risk versus what kind of risk you'd like to take. Think of the bail bondsman. Sometimes the fun feels almost unconstitutional, although it's known to deliver a major mental reset. Be that as it may, there's just no explaining that drunken iguana, so I'm going to phone myself just to be on the safe side. If someone ugly answers, I'll hang up. Thank you.
Thank you, Brad. Wonderful as always. Wonderful and entertaining and deep and all that. Brad Rose, thank you for being here with us today and sharing your wonderful work. Your next reader, Ben or Benjamin, I don't know which you prefer, Ben Nespodziany, is a Chicago-based writer and with work in Fence, Bennington Review, Wigleaf, Fractured Lit, Pithead Chapel, and elsewhere. His chapbook was recently awarded the 2025 Poetry Prize with Gasher Press and will be out in October. It's very exciting. Along with hosting the Neon Night Mike reading series, he runs the poetry publication Pajama Press. Also someone who doesn't sleep, really. You can find more at neonpajamas.com. Ben Nespodziany.
Thank you so much, Francine. Hey, everybody. Yeah, this is great to be here and have an evening or afternoon dedicated just to prose poetry, my favorite. So I have a bunch of really small pieces. Some of them are new. Some of them are from about the last year or so. So I'll get right into it. This first one is called Childhood, and it was actually written using one of Meg's prompts from her wonderful Substack, which I'll put in the chat because it's a great resource. And the prompt for this one was, write a story, poem, or fragment about an unlikely childhood transaction. Keep it under 75 words, mine is 75 words exactly. And here it is. It's called Childhood. You don't have the stomach for such subjects, she said. I do too, I replied, I do. The rain cloud above us was a pinkish howdy. The door before us had a plastic mirror. You're too warm-hearted, she said. The fruit had a stem, the desk had a spill. I am not, I said. I wanted to scream. She didn't believe a word I said, and neither did I. Still, we continued. We could barely find the vein. And this next piece is called Big 50. And I think most of these pieces, I don't understand them. So if you understand them, please give me some insight in the chat, because the ambiguity with these is quite daunting for me. This one's called Big 50. Big 50 is gone. I hated her. We all did. But we didn't want her dead. I attended Big 50's funeral with the usual cast: Pat, Janet, Trench, Len. The weather map called for hell, so we scooted early over to Worley's. It was Big 50. It's what Big 50 would have wanted. Big 50 wasn't much sunshine, but she didn't deserve to die like that, out on that catwalk, trying to talk down her lost father. It's so sad when life finds a way to gray your every hair, even if you try to help, even if you do nothing at all. And this prose poem is called 10 Million Volts of Energy, and it was written along Lake Michigan. I waited by the lake. You waited in the lake. I was patient. You were bathing. You told me to look the other way. When you were done bathing, you stayed in the lake. You asked for a snack. Candles was all I had, so I handed you my candles and you ate my candles. The thunder above us sounded like a lake eating a plane. When the lightning hit the water, you were no longer yourself. You were a ghost of candles, a can of sticks. The wicks lit at once, and you turned into a chandelier, floating right there in the lake. I thanked you for your performance. I applauded all that you had done. The sun would not be returning. We would never learn. And this piece is called Moon Dripping. It's inspired by the poet Gregory Orr, who mostly writes really small poems, but this one kind of expanded and turned into a prose poem. Moon Dripping. I saw the banjo man with a jawbone molded out of stars. Car parts fell from his mouth. He was not loud in his pain. He made no fuss as his wife removed spools of red ribbon from his endless open wounds. Each pull sounded like the newest song. There was a threatening to his calm. By morning, they were packed, a Cadillac with snow frozen over, my hand bandaged in their trunk. My eyes, such tiny wine glasses, my eyes of tired eyes. Another one that I don't understand, but we continue. This one's called Shelf, and it might even be weirder than the other ones I've read. I got a few more left. Shelf. I caught an animal with my new pair of ice hours. 100,000 crime partners admired my funeral of glass. One ghost alone with a weep, one beat. Death can be so amazing. You wrote this in a notepad on fire. A book so full of no, and another, a book so full of souls. And then I will close with one poem of my own and then one poem from my press, both prose poems. This one's called Uncle Time, and it's the title poem of my chapbook that'll be out with Gasher Press in October. Uncle Time. My uncle huddles dead inside his clock, a grandfather clock. My dead uncle inside a dead grandfather clock. We threw my uncle into the pond just as he had asked. At our last family gathering back when we knew how to chew through fog, my uncle is lost. My uncle is gone. His gone was undocumented. His gong was not documented. An untimely demise with no doctor to ponder the root. I doubt my other uncles huddled around a fire, inspecting and dismissing all of their ticks. And then I will close. I have two books with my press that I launched last year coming out on May 27th. Both books are books of prose poems. So I'll read one from Reka Nitra, who is a Hungarian Romanian poet. And it's two books in one. So you finish the book halfway through, flip it upside down, and then the other half is there. And they're all prose poems. This one is called Fragile. At night, the bird came, and with its chiseled beak, it broke all the mirrors in the house. In the morning, the meadow of my bed was a snow of shards. I took a pipette and collected all the fragments. I put them in the oven to melt. From their paste, I modeled a glass mask. When I wear it, every man wants to make love to me, and every woman avoids my eyes. Thanks so much.
Wow. Thank you, Ben. Ben Nespodziany. Wonderful, wonderful work. And congratulations on your upcoming chapbook and on your press and everything that you do. Wonderful. So I want to take a minute, as I always like to, when I pretend I'm Ed Sullivan. You all remember Ed Sullivan, I hope. Otherwise, I feel ancient. Anyway, what he would do is he would point people out who were there, notables in the audience. So that's what I'm going to do. And thank you for being here with us in the Zoom room today. I want to thank, just looking for Calliope Peleos, Jude Marr, Faye Snyder, Kit Catherine Schmeiser, John Kay, Chelsea Stickle, Michelle Diaz, David Wojciechowski, Lauren Cardos and Shweta Amit. And if I missed you, I'm sorry. I was just like zipping through the thing. But if I missed you, put it in the chat, scold me, and I will correct that post haste. Okay, let's continue. Next, we're going to hear from Alexis Rhone Fancher. Alexis Rhone Fancher, poet, photographer, Alexis Rhone Fancher, and let me say parenthetically, you could have written amazing photographer. Your photos are just stunning. Is published in Best American Poetry, Rattle, the American Journal of Poetry, Spillway, Plume, Diode, Duende, and elsewhere. She's authored 11 poetry collections and recently Triggered from Maclean's and Brazen from NYQ, a multi-pushcart prize and Best of the Net nominee. Alexis recently won Best Microfiction 2025. She calls the Mojave Desert home, and her website is alexisrhonefancher.com. Alexis Rhone Fancher.
Hello, nice to be in such wonderful company. And yes, I'm all the way out in the Mojave Desert. Very quiet here. I have 4 poems. Let me just say, I love prose poetry. I just pretty much only write prose poetry these days. It fills me. It works. This first one was published in Book of Matches last year, and it's called Like Gretel, an ode to my husband's aversion to clothes. When you come home, you can't get naked quickly enough. When you leave a trail of clothes from the front door to our bedroom, I'm grateful. A straight line from foyer to in the buff, your preferred state. Each discarded piece of propriety brings you one step closer to me. I follow them like breadcrumbs in the perpetual forest of foreplay. Then I eat them. Swallow your magic, shoes, socks, Hawaiian shirt. I savor each morsel, the black jeans you favor still warm and tasty. I'm grateful for your jockey shorts, a pungent combination of detergent and sweat. So yummy, I eat it all. Simple to swallow, easy as your kisses, your cock, your tender heart. I know you love me, baby. It's as plain as your t-shirt on the floor. The second one, I guess, I don't know, maybe I should just say I swing both ways. So this is a love poem to a woman I was with for a while. It's called Power Play. When my lover tells me I cannot say no and I protest, she parts my legs, says, yes, baby, yes. I do what I'm told. No becomes a foreign country. I take it as permission, open season. So when the waiter asks if there'll be anything else, I peruse his menu. I'm stuck, but I say yes, cram my mouth with macaroons and chocolate. And when the Lyft driver seduces me in the rear view, eyes me like prey and asks, may I kiss you? I say, yes. And when the long-legged woman I've long lusted after at the gym wonders aloud if I'm single, asks me to dinner and a movie, I say, yes. And when she invites me into her bed, what can I say but yes, yes, yes? And when my fan in Nova Scotia begs me to be his muse, to sanction an explicit ode to my breasts, my ankles, my lower lip, a poem he'd never show his wife, I cannot say no to his lust and delusion. Now he wants to climb me, sublime me, shoot me full of stars. Is this what you want too? He writes and I answer, yes. And when I return to my lover at last, and she sinks into the heady dampness between my thighs, looks up at me and asks, have you been faithful? I say, yes. I've always had this really ambiguous feeling about Mary and Joseph and the baby Jesus, and how proudly Joseph must have felt when she brought home this baby. Paternity. First off, I was bereft. How could Mary have deceived me? I always thought she was satisfied I can't tell you how many all-nighters I pulled, staying up late, reading Masters and Johnson, the skills I'd conquered for her pleasure. What about the G-spot, Mary? She always moans when I find it. Now I have to wonder, was she faking it? As for the bun in the oven, who's responsible? When Mary said God, I laughed. That's who you're laying this on? What blasphemy is that? I'm a Jew, a pious one. Surely she could come up with something better than God. Still, I have to admit, Mary has a wild imagination, covering up a peccadillo with a wild goose tail. Who does she think she's fooling? Curious, I follow her out to the manger where the tiny tot's cradled in a bed made of straw, a blanket tucked neatly around his body. He's cute, looks a lot like Mary's dad. It's a miracle, Mary says, and the kid's gonna save us all. I have one more. One of my favorites, actually. It's a food poem. How to Eat an Artichoke. Look, he said, eating an artichoke is like eating a woman. He held the barbed vegetable up to the light. See these, he said, pointing to the tough outer petals crowned with thorns. Think of them as labia. How like, how like sentries they guard the succulent center. I watched him tug downward, severing petals from their source. He dipped each one into a bowl of melted butter, put it between his front teeth, and scraped the tender bottom into his mouth. I watched as he worked his way around the world, tug, dip, nibble, tug, dip, scrape. And the satisfaction on his face growing with each denuded petal, petals that grew softer as he worked his way in. Once the barriers had been breached, pluck the inner petals, he said. I watched him souse them, bring them to his mouth, watch the butter trickle down his chin. Nibble at them like they're your girlfriend, he said. Note the pleasure of the pulp in your mouth, the taste of butter and sea salt on your lips, how you tongue your way to the center. When the petals disappear, you must stop and take stock. Note how the furry choke hides the treasure beneath. Spoon it out little by little until you've revealed the light green center. Go ahead, cover it with what butter remains, then bite into her heart. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Alexis. I'm hungry for like everything now. That was really wonderful, Alexis. Thank you so much. Alexis Rhone Fancher. Yeah, great stuff. Okay, next we're going to hear from Erin Murphy. Erin Murphy's most recent books are Human Resources, Mother as Conjunction, Lyric Essays in Fluent in Blue, which is winner of the 2025 American Book Fest Best Book Award, Swoon, New and Selected Poems, forthcoming in June. She's professor of English at Penn State and poetry editor of the Somerset Review, where she loves receiving prose poem submissions. Good to know. The wonderful Erin Murphy.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Francine and Meg, for organizing such a great reading. I'm going to read three prose poems. This first one was published originally in One Art, a journal of poetry, and then it was recently selected by Anne Seuss for inclusion in Best Microfiction 2026. So I'm very excited about that. I love Best Microfiction. It's called Insomnia Chronicles 23. And it's part of a series that I have of poems that kind of reenact the associative thinking that tends to happen in the wee hours of the night. Insomnia Chronicles 23. The night is full of insomniacs Googling insomnia. My husband swears that every time he looks at a clock, it's a palindrome, 9:19 or 12:21. What are the odds, I wonder, and ask my phone, How many times a day are palindromes? But before I type the last word, autocomplete reveals the most common searches. How many times a day are you supposed to poop? A digital clock has 44 palindrome times in a 24-hour period, about 3% of the 1,440 times in a day. Admit it, you want to know how often you should be pooping, don't you? At least once every 3 days, but your mileage may vary. I squint at the red numbers on my bedside table. 5:38 a.m. Not a palindrome. It's Electoral College o'clock. Huh. I wonder if this sentence has ever been uttered before. Like Johnny Carson's bit, phrases you'll never hear. My favorite, that's the banjo player's Porsche. I once had a student walk into my office her freshman year and say, "My dream is to become a technical writer," a sentence I'd never heard before. I get teacher, novelist, librarian. One advisee wanted to be the editor of Random House, which seemed not so random. But no technical writers right out of the gate. I heard that the Space Shuttle Challenger crashed in part because of a technical communication error, something about politeness downplaying the potential O-ring dangers. I was in high school. They wheeled AV carts into classrooms so we could watch the first teacher launch into space. Suddenly, there was a ball of fire and a Y of smoke against the sky. Mrs. Bird scurried to turn off the TV and launched us to lunch, then home. Every generation has its challenger. Every generation has its challenges. Some version of routine, 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 disaster, routine, routine, routine. A palindrome. This next poem, also an Insomnia Chronicles poem, it's forthcoming in the Indianapolis Review. Insomnia Chronicles 35. The night is full of insomniacs Googling insomnia. I'm trying to make a reservation at Outback Steakhouse. Don't judge. My aunt gave me a gift card. $25 is $25. It's not really a reservation, it's call ahead seating, which just bumps you up a few slots on the wait list. You still have to huddle with other sad Outback diners in winter coats that smell like wet dogs. I download the Outback app and create an account. It sends a confirmation code to my junk email account. In order to log into my junk email account, I need to have a confirmation code sent to my regular email account. In my regular email account, an AI pop-up screen suggests I send a message to my team congratulating them on achieving an important goal. I don't have a team. I have English department colleagues. The only goal we've achieved is not jumping collectively off a bridge in response to teaching writing to students who think writing is obsolete. But now I'm supposed to send my colleagues an email thanking them for their unwavering commitment and exceptional contributions in helping reach remarkable milestones while overcoming numerous challenges. Instead, I enter a confirmation code to get another confirmation code to make a reservation that's not really a reservation at an Australian steakhouse that's not really Australian and barely a steakhouse. I'm pretty sure my Outback account is more secure than our nation's nuclear codes, especially after the administration fired 300 national security workers, then scrambled to rehire them after realizing they oversee our nuclear security. Australia probably won't even be Australia for long. After we conquer Canada and Greenland, we'll surely try to get over on the land down under. What I'm trying to say is, dear team, thank you for your tireless efforts and for always going above and beyond. And then the last poem I'm going to read is super short. But when Tina Turner died a couple of years ago, I was just incensed because every obituary I read led with her having been discovered by Ike Turner, who was her long ago ex-husband who had abused her, right? And so I decided to clap back at that. And I looked up Ike Turner's obituary from 2007. And I'm going to screen share here because this poem is better visual. So as you can see, it's the Blackout Erasure poem. It's called Ike Turner's Obituary. This
That's
is the
great.
poem. Tina, 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 Tina. And this is this poem, it's from my book Human Resources, but it'll be in my new and selected poems that's coming out in June. Thanks for listening.
Wonderful. That was wonderful. Thank you so much, Erin. It was really wonderful. Erin Murphy,
Thank you.
terrific. Yeah, and I hope everybody's reading the comments in the chat after you read. They're wonderful comments, and thank you those of you posting them. It's good to hear your voices too. So thank you, Erin Murphy. Thank you for being here with us today and sharing your wonderful work. Okay. Okay, so now I'm going to turn this over to Meg Pokrass. Meg Pokrass is over in the UK. It looks like she's in a garden or something, but anyway, Meg Pokrass, take it away.
Thanks, Francine. Okay, first up on my half is Jeff Friedman. Jeff Friedman has published 11 collections of poetry and prose, including his most recent Broken Signals from Bamboo Dart Press in 2024. His work has appeared in Best Microfiction, New Republic, New England Review, Poetry, and American Poetry Review. He has received an NEA Literature Translation Fellowship and numerous other awards. And Jeff and I have a collaboratively written chapbook coming out with Bamboo Dart Press this summer entitled Aurora Baldialis. Welcome, Jeff. Jeff, I think you're muted.
I got
There he is.
Okay.
Yeah, you just muted yourself again.
I'm just quick on, I'm quick on the button. I'm so quick on it that it mutes even as I turn it on and off. So thank you for that introduction. Thank you, Meg and Francine, for inviting me to read at the Prose Garden again. Some great readings already. I was just thinking about I'm an insomniac also, so that was an interesting poem too. I don't really Google insomnia. I Google short sleeper to hope I'm that. So, or to see where I cross over, So, anyway, I'm going to start with two pieces I haven't read before. They just appeared very recently in Plume magazine. The first one's called Reward and Punishment. George Washington didn't have wooden teeth. Everyone knows that now. His dentures were made of ivory and human and animal teeth. The ivory may have come from African elephants, probably through some illegal or cruel means. Washington didn't chop down a cherry tree and then fess up to it either. That's a myth parents tell their children, so they see the benefit to not lying. And there's a benefit to telling the truth if you receive a reward or don't endure a punishment for doing whatever you did that may have necessitated telling a lie in the first place. It probably wasn't cutting down a cherry tree. It may have been stealing money from your father's wallet or accidentally breaking a candy dish while playing roughly in the living room with a friend, or even spilling pop all over the carpet. No way to hide that. Of course, as an adult, you probably did something far worse, and the truth might land you in prison. So maybe you should lie if you can avoid being tossed in the hoosegow. Lie, 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 until the only thing left for you to do is to tell the truth. And then your reward will be your punishment. Next one is called Two Faces. My lover has two faces. One face is lovely with small, delicate features. That face loves the way I talk, how I move my hands in air as though I'm playing the keyboard. In truth, I play no instruments, but she thinks I'm musical. She thinks I have so many talents. You'd be great on the keyboard, she says, or on any other instrument. This face loves what I say. Every word, every syllable vibrates the truth. The other face narrows and is mistrustful. Everything I say is grounds for a fight and reminds her of something else I've said that has caused her to become nauseated, or at the very least, to want to leave the room, or perhaps even find a new boyfriend. She snickers at my jokes and funny stories as if she thinks I'm pathetic. Do the two faces even know each other exists? I love the face that loves everything about me, but I only trust the other one. Thank you. A note of delirium. This was written during the pandemic, when there was a sense of delirium, which has continued past the pandemic. It was published both as a prose poem and a micro, and it's appearing in the upcoming Best Microfiction. A note of delirium. He called it delirium. He could hear a single note echoing in a vacant house. He could hear it whistling like a bird plunging into the dirt. He could hear the note in a monotony of voices. Sparrows sung the note from the branches of trees and from windowsills. Dogs on porches growled the note as a warning. Cats meowed it, tugging at curtains or peering out windows. He put on headphones, but then he began to see the note. A gnat flying into the sun's ray through the windows. A barred owl with a stoic face. Then he could see it in the eyes of the cop who stood at the corner each day. He could see it spinning on the asphalt, a dangerous dreidel, picking up speed, bashing into cars and kids on scooters, pushing off with their legs. He wanted to stop the note, to kill it off before it did any more damage. But it vibrated in his brain, leaped from his lips, told its own story to anyone who would listen. The next one is called Nothing. It's not based on the Seinfeld story, by the way. Even though I love Seinfeld and I love that episode about nothing. But anyway, Nothing. This appeared in American Journal of Poetry and in my book, Floating Tales, which was published back in 2017. Nothing. Nothing enters the room in a gust of wind, a falling light, a flaming shadow. Nothing grabs you by the shoulder, causing you to wince. Nothing prophesies nothing good for your future. In your case, nothing says, nothing is a bargain. Hold on to yourself as if you were holding on to nothing. Pretend that nothing exists and you won't be disappointed. Pretend that nothing doesn't exist and nothing will surprise you. Try to imagine nothing. Does it encircle you? Is it the sky empty of darkness and light and therefore empty of sky? When you embrace everything, nothing embraces you. Nothing rings the bell. Nothing deals the cards, plays all your hands. Nothing believes everything you say. Nothing touches you with all its tenderness and tears. Nothing tells you what you want to hear. Nothing takes it all back and gives it to you again. I think I have time for two more. Okay, this is a short one called Old Men, and it also appeared in Floating Tales. It was written quite a while ago. Old Men. I've never read it, though, so I thought I'd read it aloud for once. Old Men. In the middle of the afternoon, old men lose their gravity, floating off the sidewalks. Some bump their heads against tree trunks. Some collide with birds who resent the intruders in their airspace. Some old men get their filaments of hair tangled in branches, while others wisely latch onto clouds and kick their way through the sky. Some old men turn over and over in space, their wallets and keys dropping from their pockets, and others shoot up like hot air balloons. But on the ground, two old men clutch fire hydrants, as if they were lovers and won't let go. And then last, I'll finish up with a poem I wrote during the first Trump administration, which I think still probably applies. It appeared in my book, The Marksman. What Happened to the Country, it's called. Some say the president declared the country his and took it home. Some say the country was wild turkeys waddling under the blind blue sky. deer leaping into the foliage, but hunters dispatched them into the next world. Some say that even though hundreds of trucks cranked their winches, the country sank into the quagmire and pulled the trucks down with it, bubbles bursting on the surface. Some say you could still find the country if you have the right map, but so many have followed their maps, disappearing without leaving behind a note or a sign. Though many remember the country with tears in their eyes, and many salute when they hear it called by name, though some decry the country as a false brotherhood, others believe it was an idea, and ideas evolve into other ideas, or evaporate like rain beaten on window frames whose glass has been shattered. Without a country, without a piece of land, there is nothing to fight over. And now all of us are refugees, walking in twos or threes toward nowhere anyone can imagine. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Jeff. Amazing as always. It was so great to hear you read those pieces.
Thank you.
Next up is Lorette C. Luzajic. Lorette C. Luzajic writes flash and prose poetry, usually inspired by visual art. She is the founding editor of the Mackinac, a journal of prose poetry, and the Acrostic Review. Welcome, Lorette.
Thank you so much, Meg and Francine, for having me, and thank you for all of these wonderful readings so far. The first three prose poems are from my collection from a few years ago, Winter in June. This first one is called Night Flight. Imagine we were half bird. Our flight is fleeting, yes, but still we sometimes slipped into the sky. You are new to this world and don't know the half of it. Even so, you show us the way, how to slay the dragons, how to turn the page. We gnaw on plastic poultry legs and rubbery bananas, and you fake punch a random price into a toy cash register. Hold your grubby paw out for my pocket full of coins. I wouldn't have wished the world on you, but here you are. You have arrived, starry-eyed and surprised. You have a blue-green bike and a matching bow in your hair. You love cucumbers and mangoes and the frilliest pajamas. Every word is a victory, and you're starting to string them together. We were dancing in our sock feet in your toy room, stripes and polka dots a blur in your swirl. If only we had more ice cream, you say, when I pull out the goodnight story. You stall for time before lights out, and I guess it's the same for all of us. Lord, just one more year, just one more day, just one more hour. But soon you are drifting through the clouds, and I watch sleep soften your small face. The moon is your witness, I think, kissing you where she does, on your dimple. I cover you in a thin sheet, watch your shifting shoulders, small wings dark as earth. This next piece is called Found Objects. We were on the outskirts of Lisbon. We walked and walked and walked when we were still allowed to walk outside. The day was long and gray, and the mist rolled down the hills from the castles to the coast, down from Sintra onto the silver strip of shore. A few grills were set up in the sand, and women were selling sardines. We watched the surfers riding steely waves. You gathered glass and barnacles, collecting them in a blue jar, and I tossed someone's broken sunglasses back into the sea. The sun was bobbing red behind the day, playing shy on the other side of the clouds. I loved watching you raise your face to the sky, reaching to touch it. I couldn't believe that you found me and that I was here beside you. Maybe we would never go back. That's what you were thinking or hoping. The world was about to fall apart, close in on itself, but there was no way we could know. We did not duck to dodge the dendrites of disease. There were no masks, no fears of contamination, no signs warning us to keep our distance from everyone else. All that was true was the sea and the sky, a paper bag of pastéis de nata, and pale frost slivers of flotsam beach glass, like moonstone gifts spangled across the shore. This poem is called Stutter. He had a way with words, dropping them and picking them up over and over in stops and starts. You found something there, in the way he would dust them off and start again, in the staccato of syllables, the awkward alliteration, in the consonants of his vivisected vocabulary. He would raise a finger and lower his voice when he needed to summon courage to carry on. Then all the words would flow into a warm river of euphony. You wanted him to read to you. You wanted him to tell you your name. How those sharper edges, the first locutions, would give way to a gorgeous tumble of idioms and appellations. You imagined his tongue would taste tart and nervous and fertile like apples. You wanted him to kiss you, to take the words right out of your mouth.
Beautiful.
These next two are newish and unpublished. The first one's called The Orchard. Those childhood orchards were full of poisonous apples. Still you dreamed of them, revised, tough, knobby sentries, drenched in soft pink cotton blossoms, green, sweet candy perfume air. Gretel, Hansel, the wriggling branch is the finger of the witch. What does it mean to know your mother never loved you? You had already asked her yourself more than once. There was no reply. Think back to the doorways, the lacunae between the liminal and the sure, heady lilacs, milkweed, dandelions, stone arches, swooping corridors, curtains, velvet heavy, ribboned boxes of Weinbrand Bohnen, mannequin hands like scraggly trees beside an unmade bed, skewering rhinestone rings and a plastic rose. There were times when you believed you were a prisoner in the castle. There is no way out, even now. And this is the last poem. It's called Tame. You are knit from the ancient sands, desert dust spun from lapis lazuli and peridot, a constellation of chalcedonies. And I have written my lamentations across your torso, pleas against scorpions, petitions against striking serpents. Your own primordial incantations transform your limbs to feathered wings, now a falcon, now a Bennu bird, spindly-legged ibis with a long beak foraging for frogs. They found millions of these birds, mummified under ages of stone and sun, shapeshifters transforming time itself. I give you my handful of amulets, amethyst pendants to jewel your jutting collarbone, talismans meant to tame. These hieroglyphs of mine feebly attempt the encryption of destiny, aim to make myth of the ways I will lose you to lesser gods. I wanted you certain and valiant, a protector instead of a warning, as if my abracadabra holds any sway at all in fate and her mysteries, as if a mortal like me could somehow keep a river or a storm. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Lorette. Beautiful pieces. It was so wonderful to hear you read them. Thanks for being with us. Next up is Carrie Etter. American expatriate Carrie Etter's prose poems have appeared in PN Review, Poetry Review, the Penguin Book of the Prose Poem, Westerly, and many other anthologies and magazines internationally. Her fifth collection, Grief's Alphabet, was published in 2024. Welcome, Carrie.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. It's really great to be here with such wonderful poets. I'm going to read 4 prose poems from my most recent book, Grief's Alphabet, which is really the story of my relationship with my mother and adopted mother and her unexpected death. The first one is after Frank O'Hara's Shay Jane, and it's called after my mother's first name, Shay Bernadine. Have you ever seen such a collection of toy lighthouses? Wood, ceramic, plastic, papier-mâché. They're artistic amid the kitsch. They pepper the oak shelves either side of the television. on the likely chance to view its view of a newly refurbished house or an actor's perfect teeth proves less satisfying, and your best chance of transport lies in the choice of one of these little lighthouses, and an imaginative journey it is your turn to supply. Consider that tall white one with a single broad red stripe, stretching at its base, facing a sea crashing again and again on the rocks below, facing the spray misting your face. You. You. I'm in that denial stage with the reading glasses. I realized with the slip up in that I need to just go on ahead and put them on. So here we go. Heroine song. When she heard the hospice nurse had poured the last of the morphine into a bag of sand, she wept. Mid-March, yet the temperature neared 70. I rubbed my eyes with fists. Mom wanted her to leave, wanted to sleep. The phone rang every 10 minutes. When his breathing changed, I was awakened. I didn't think to hurry. The cats circled and perched, circled and perched. So warm for March, ideal cycling weather. His last breath was a tremendous gasp. I made calls. It was dark. I rubbed my eyes with fists. I didn't think to hurry. The cats watched from the sofa, scattered when the morticians arrived. When his breathing changed, I was awakened. It was 2:40 a.m., all dark. She came by at 7 or 8. Mom wanted her to leave, wanted to sleep. The temperature nearly reached 70, his ideal cycling weather. When the men went for the gurney, I kissed him goodbye. He was neither warm nor cold. I rubbed my eyes with fists. I called the hospice nurse, then, hours later, my sisters. Mid-March, Friday the 13th, in fact. His last breath was a tremendous gasp. My blonde sister arrived first. The phone rang every 10 minutes. One cat had gone missing. She came by at 7 or 8. I didn't think to hurry. When she heard the hospice nurse had poured the last of the morphine into a bag of sand, then my sister wept. Family, eh? And this is where I get the image for the cover. This image was chosen from this particular poem. Homing. Back from California, back from England, I with my mother became we. If snow blanketed the yard, we saw a cardinal settle on it briefly, brilliant red sharpening the white. If rain fell, we lingered and chanted in the rooms where it could best be heard. In summer, we breakfasted on salted melon, ate corn on the cob with dinner. In winter, orange cinnamon tea fragranced the air. For most lunches, we traveled to find another enclave, ideally a booth where we could relish General Cho's chicken or toasted bagels with red onion cream cheese or BLTs on sourdough. We drank large glasses of iced tea. We talked about how this grandchild/nephew aced the state math test, how this daughter-sister liked her new job as a teaching assistant. And we talked like this for days. I was like that red cardinal on the white lawn, easy in brightness. Except I was too. We. And for my last poem, I'm going to go to the next to last poem in the book. Short poem. Ghost. I stand just outside the house on the north hill of Bath and look down into the valley. I nod at Salisbury Hill and Bathampton as though in greeting. The photo captures the moment I raise my arm to point them out. To her standing beside me. To her who never stood here. Who never came to England. My mouth is open. There are so many words. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Carrie. Those are such powerful pieces, and it was such a delight to have you read with us. Thank you. Next up is Barbara Krasner. Barbara Krasner holds an MFA from Vermont College of Fine Arts. Her prose poetry has appeared or is forthcoming in Tupelo Quarterly, the Ekphrastic Review, the Mackinac, a journal of prose poetry, Gyroscope Review, Blazevox, Laurel Review, McQueen's Quinterly, and elsewhere. A multiple Pushcart Prize nominee, she lives and teaches in New Jersey. Welcome, Barbara.
Thank you so much, Meg, and thanks everyone for being here today. I am honored to be among you. I am going to read two poems from Poems of the Winter Palace. This is a collection I wrote when an autoimmune disease put me into an isolation bubble for 9 months. And I wrote two curated images from the Hermitage. And this first one is Belle Epoque, after Boulevard Montmartre in Paris by Pizarro. Stand at the window of the Grand Russian Hotel in Montmartre. Look upon the cobblestone boulevard streaming with carriages and pedestrians, the cacophony of rumbling horse hooves and babbling conversations. Women will meet up with friends under cafe awnings, nibble on macarons, and sip coffee demi-tasses, gossip about who was seated last night in the opera boxes. They will order haute couture from the dressmaker and custom chapeau from the milliner. They will brag about their husband's industry, working long hours at the office. They will gush about the exceptional intellect of their tutored children. They will complain about the laziness and lack of gratitude of hired help. Men will venture into back rooms to meet their mistresses, make plans for the Moulin Rouge, bribe their drivers into silence with crisp new bills. You, voyeur, your eyes cannot keep pace with the pulse of the street. You sit at your easel by the window, willing your hand to move as quickly as heavy rain, to capture what you see. And this is The Sorrows of Young Werther after the Lute Player by Caravaggio. Goethe's young Werther may not have played a cracked lute. He may not have played a violin. He may not have known how to read music. But he knew the ache between his ribs of loving a woman engaged to someone else, someone less simpatico than he. He knew the smell of rotting affection, the withering of spring petals, and blur of his own watery eyes. Most of all, he knew the hole in him that only her love could fill would forever remain dark. No stringed instrument melody would or could cure him. Only the blast of bullets to his head would tear into his sorrows and render them shards of nothingness. And so I just posted the link to that book in the chat. And now I will read from a piece called My Convalescence. This was published in Flair magazine, which is a magazine devoted to chronic illness and disability. And this is based on a painting I saw at the Neue Galerie, To the Convalescing Woman by Erich Heckel. 1. A year ago, I sat up in bed and took 90 minutes to decide how I was going to lift myself out. Bending my steroid-swollen legs made me wince with pain. The carpet flooded with bits of skin that wanted to escape my disease. A year ago in bed, in the hours I couldn't sleep, I flipped through books about the Dutch masters, the collections at the Hermitage and the Louvre, surveys of American and British art. I wanted to envelop myself in color and shapes and the pure mastery of artists. 2. The potted plant in the corner of the dining room reminded me that once I, too, could stand erect without the help of some device, that I could blossom in front of the windows. Writing in response to art keeps my petals open to the light, even when all I see is darkness. 3. I surround my house with sunflowers without awareness. Silk sunflowers in a Rosenthal vase, a Van Gogh print on the powder room wall, so when I inject myself several times a day with short-acting insulin or blood thinners, I can see beauty. More vases of silk sunflowers on the dining room table and in my bedroom. I have never been a fan of the sun, but sunflowers greet me with strength and resilience. They turn toward me when others, rooted in ignorance, turn away. And I'll put that link in the chat. This next one is forthcoming in Table Feast. And once I could escape my immunocompromised bubble, I went to the Pollock Krasner house on Long Island. And as a result, wrote this. How to speak Esperanto like Jackson Pollock. Inhale house paint. Draw circles in the air like your third grade penmanship teacher. Let your memories manipulate you like a puppeteer. Sway. The shrieks of the stallion your father demanded you shoot. Swirl. The taunting consonants of dumb. Splatter. The slipped sounds of your foothold in nothingness. Apply to your grid hurried marks. Each drip a vowel, each pour a consonant, each swing a sentence in your self-constructed language. Ease your outsider into the rings of an insider. Accent with dust and ash. Go to the icebox. Choose your final letter. And my last two come from the Mackinac. Thank you, Lorette. And this is called Kintsugi, which was nominated for Best of the Net. If only I could fill the chasms of my life with silver or gold, the open veins caused by lack of companionship, the silences of no one to listen. If only I could mortar the space between tesserae with granddaughter giggles and hugs around the neck. If only I could batten the noise with the softness of stuffed animals and the ankle socks my mother used to fill with kosher salt to cure an earache. If only I could breathe deeply with Vicks VapoRub to unlock my nasal passages and feel the mentholated heat on my chest. If only I could pour my mother's chicken soup with mashed up matzo balls into the skeins of my memory, loosen the phlegm in my throat when I cry out for her, 17 years after her death. If only I could back out of the garage without hitting the goddamn plastic garbage can and without taking out half the weather stripping of the door frame. If only I could make myself whole once again, stitched together the skin that's eating me alive since the Moderna booster fool's gold. And my last poem, also from the Mackinac, is called Shock, and this was nominated for Best Microfiction. Shock is when your sister calls and says her husband, 56, died of a heart attack while eating salad at Applebee's. Shock is the look on the soon-to-be ex-husband's face when you tell him you're filing for divorce. Shock is the set of financial demands he makes of you because it's always been about the money for him. Shock sings. Shock stings. Shock is what you wish the medical team had applied to get your father's shunted heart pumping again. Shock is seeing a photo of your Methuselah grandfather with actual hair and learning your great-grandparents had immigrated to America and lived in Newark's 3rd Ward. Shock is when you find out all the irreplaceable photos from the old country were ruined and tossed away when the boiler burst. Shock wails. Shock mourns. Shock is what you go into when a Chevy Equinox rear-ends your beloved Infiniti on the parkway, shattering all windows and deploying 3 airbags. Shock is the litmus test to assure you you're still alive. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Barbara. What a terrific reading. Thanks so much for being here. What amazing readings tonight, all of you. Thank you. Gosh. Back to you, Francine.
Well, thank you, Meg Pokrass. So, Meg and I, we just curate this reading, but wow, you readers really bring it, you really, really bring it. So, thank you for that. I really kind of feel that, if I can just say this, I feel like this is almost a master class in prose poetry, you know? So, if anybody wanted to use this in their class and say, this is prose poetry, this is what it looks like, certainly would be this, because all the readers were just brilliant, brilliant. So I thought, now that we've heard these wonderful readings, we don't usually do this, but I thought it would take a couple of minutes, like real short. I want to pose this question to the readers. We've talked a lot, there's been a lot of discussion about the difference between what makes a prose poem and not a micro, but we're not going to talk about that. What I want to think about is, some of you who read today write lined verse also. But even if you don't, I want to put this question forward. What is it about the prose poem that when you sit down to write it, you decide not to write it as lined verse? So what is that essential attraction to prose poetry as opposed to lined poetry? So, I have some thoughts, but I'd like to hear what the other readers thought, if anybody wants to venture an opinion.
Oh,
Barbara?
yeah.
Okay, Barbara.
I'm a narrative poet, not lyrical. So I tend to tell stories within my poems. And even if I start out writing a lineated poem, I just play around with it and say, what would it look like? What would it sound like without the breaks? And I really like the uninterrupted melody when there is no line break. And so that and my poetry mentor told me that I am much better at prose poetry than lineated. So I stick with where my strength is.
Nice, thank you. Comment. Anyone else? Jeff, did you want to say something? You're on mute though. You're on mute, so you have to take yourself off.
Mime it. I was going to mime it. I thought that would be
Okay.
my response. I don't know. I think I wrote mostly. Actually, I started a long time ago with writing little fable kind of pieces, and then moved into writing lineated poems when I met really Larry Levis and worked with him for 3 years. And then I just continued doing that. But I think I got to a point with the line and the line break that I felt like I was repeating myself. You know what I mean? I played with it so much and I felt like I was repeating myself. And I wanted to see what would a litany or what would a lyrical poem. I was also influenced by the Bible. What would it look like in prose, or how would it be if I moved it out of the line? And what would that do to change the kind of work I was doing? I also told stories a lot. So it was kind of a way of re-enlivening what I was doing. I mean, I got tired of, I feel like you write certain ways with a short line and the long line, and you start to do certain tricks over and over again. And I just moved away from it at some point and just said, I'm going to just move away from this right now and see what it does. So that's for me how I got there.
Oh, nice. Thank you. Oh, Lorette, birthday girl.
Yeah, I don't know. Since I started writing prose poetry, I have hardly written any other kind. It just sucked me completely over and became addictive. But I also write flash, so sometimes they're kind of both. But I feel like taking out the line took out a kind of crutch, and that a lot of poetry, the line is the only thing that makes it a poem. And it just became really challenging to use more poetic language or other kinds of elements and tricks. And so I don't decide at the beginning. It kind of decides for me if it's going to be a microfiction or a prose poem. It decides itself. And if it's more on the poetic side and maybe has less narrative, then I call it a prose poem. And sometimes, again, they really are both, but sometimes it's definitely a prose poem and not a flash. So that's me.
I like what you said about the line is a crutch, and that's what makes it look like a poem. And I agree with that. I do agree with that. Like sometimes you read poems and you think this is very prosy. You know, why is this a poem? But thank you for that. Anybody else? Brad.
I mainly write prose poetry and have for the last, 6 or 8 years. I started out writing lineated poems, and what I found was I ran out of material about myself. And then I switched gradually, unconsciously, to writing prose poetry because I don't have to depend on my own experience or my own history. And most of my poems are persona poems. They're about some other character. The other thing is, I think it's easier to write your attitude in a prose poem than it is in a lineated poem. And I understand that might be somewhat controversial, but there's something about prose poetry that, for me at least, lets me bring in something that's really, for better or worse, about my character. And I think that's not so easy in lineated poems for me.
Interesting. Thank you.
I love that. That's so interesting. I think that's really useful. Thanks so much, Brad.
Yeah.
I mean, John, it's interesting what I said, like you said, Brad, and also Lorette. I think that throughout the history of poetry, different poets, like John Milton, said that the rhyme was an ornament, and he went into blank verse, unrhymed, and breaking into free verse. There were so many poets who thought of, the formal as being too constructed and too much of an ornament. So it's that fight over what has been. It seems like it's been historical with poetry. People finding this has no longer been relevant to my time, or it's been too mannered for someone to work on.
Interesting. Mannered. I like that. Kind of. Oh, Alexis.
I pretty much only write prose poems these days. For me, I like the chunk of it, and I like that when you do a lineated poem, things are emphasized, and you are emphasizing them to your reader. And when I write a prose poem, it blossoms, it flows. No word is more important than any other, and it creates more of a whole. WHOLE. I find it's the best way for me to express myself. The book that's on my left here just came out, and it's a book of pantoums. And I found that pantoums, in a way, are prose. It's just, I don't know, I'm just really happy with writing prose poems. I think I can express myself best in that big chunk.
Yeah. I like that what you're saying about no word is more important than any other, because definitely at the end of a line there is a ta-da about it. This word is so important that you cannot go any further.
Exactly.
You must take a breath. I like that a lot. I like all these comments. Wonderful insights on these. Anybody else? Ben.
Yeah, I really relate to everyone's comments. I can really, like the difference of the line poem being personal and the prose poem being persona. I think that's so fascinating. For me, I would say about 99% of my poems start as a line poem. I just hit the return key and it feels like I'm getting more space on the page. It feels like I'm more productive. For some reason, it's like more rapid fire. And then of those 99% that are line poems, 99% of those turn into prose poems when I second guess the line breaks and whether I'm a poet and what it looks like and moving it into a paragraph. And yeah, whether it's a vignette or I've called them postcards or microfiction or prose poem, I would say so often I'll second guess everything in the last draft and change it to a little paragraph. And if I can read it out loud and I'm happy with it, then I'll keep it as that paragraph. But every once in a while, I'll keep it because I like a line break. But that's, like I said, maybe 1 out of 100. Almost always they turn to prose poems.
Can I say one more thing?
Of course.
So, Philip Levine said something that was very humorous. They asked him why he was writing in this particular group of poems, why he's writing poems with such short lines, and he said that because the New Yorker plays by the line.
Oh, that's hilarious. That is, well, but there's a lot of truth in that.
Yeah.
I remember when I was teaching, a student said, Miss, why do you write poems? Like, because they're short. And I went, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That's like, I like writing something quickly, like having a thing quickly. So, yeah. I kind of like something that struck me very like clearly in hearing everybody's readings tonight. There's a dreaminess to everybody's work here. There's like your head is just allowed to open up and just go places that I don't find as much in a lined poem. So I think there's something about maybe not interrupting that flow. You just kind of want to go with the dream feel of it. Even if it's not a dream, and it could actually be, it's not that it's surreal necessarily, although it could be, but there's a certain like, just go with this, just relax and go with it. And it's allowed to be much more poetic language than a strict piece of prose would be. Because if you write along, I think sometimes if we write at the level we write in poetry or prose poetry, if we try to do that in prose, it gets weighed down quickly because that language is so rich and it's so dense, that it's almost too much, I think. But in a paragraph or even a couple paragraphs, like, yes, you can sustain that. But I think there's something about the breathiness of it, just the dreaminess. And but anyway, but these were all great comments, Brad.
I just wanted to add one more thought is there's a way in which this is a very democratic form. It doesn't require that you have studied poetry to read it. You don't have to figure out why the lines are confusing when you read it. And I find its accessibility really attractive for those reasons that I think people who never read poetry could not that they do, but could read my poems and make sense of them in a way. So I think that the politics of the form is an important piece of it.
Yeah.
The paragraph is less intimidating, as it, you know what I mean. Just the look of it and the entrance. I agree with that. Yeah,
it's very true. Any of the other readers have any other comments? Well, okay then. I think we are going to call this a reading, a successful reading, and I want to thank our readers: Brad Rose, Ben Nespodziany, Alexis from Fancher, Erin Murphy. She had a tulip appointment with her daughter. They're going to go see some tulips, I think. That's why she left. And I'm sorry, I meant to say that Howie Good could not be with us today. He was not feeling well, but he was missed. Sure. Erin Murphy, Jeff Friedman, Lorette Luzajic, birthday girl. I'm going to keep saying it, birthday girl. Carrie Etter and Barbara Krasner. And what a great reading. And of course, my beautiful fellow host in the UK, Meg Pokrass. Thank you all for being here with us at the Prose Garden. You're all wonderful. And thank you to the people who just came to listen. Because you just add so much to it, just your beautiful presence. And this will be up on YouTube, and we hope to see you again soon at the Prose Garden. And thank you all, and drive safely. Good night.
Thank you all.
Thanks, everyone.